Hi, thanks for joining us, everybody. Today, we're going to be talking about our SASE solution, which is part of our platform using Prisma Access and Prisma SD-WAN. Of course, we're going to be concentrating on Prisma Access components of it here, but it is a blended solution. We'll begin by talking about what SASE is. You know, you hear all these terms. You hear SaaS, you hear SASE, you hear infrastructure as a service, IaaS, you hear about SD-WAN, you hear about all these different things. And sometimes it's easy to conflate these different acronyms. So we'll describe what exactly is SASE. And then we're going to talk about our SASE approach, which includes Prisma Access and Prisma SD-WAN, two different components of our security platform. And we'll finish up by exploring some use cases that may be helpful in fleshing out how all of this solution could be useful for folks. So first of all, I think we need to ask, what is SASE? Well, SASE is a term coined by Gartner. Stands for Secure Access Service Edge. Well, what does this mean, and what is the background and the history of this? Traditionally, the idea was that the applications and the services and the things that people needed were inside a data center. And people in different offices would access the data center to access their email, to log into the network, to store their documentation, to do all of those sort of things. Well, things have changed over the years. The advent of public cloud data centers, moving the things that were traditionally behind a perimeter inside of a data center into the cloud with Amazon and Microsoft and Google Cloud and all of these different things. The idea of software as a service, where no longer is all of your information, especially confidential and sensitive information, inside a server, inside a data center, inside a big server room, or even out on the public cloud, stored there in your own implementation. But now it's being stored with third parties, Salesforce, and inside of Google Cloud and your Google Drive, Gmail, Office 365, all the applications they're out in the cloud. It's software as a service. So, and infrastructure as a service with the public cloud. So no longer is stuff traditionally where it was back in a data center. So that's a big change. Now, all of your regional and branch offices, all of your sales offices, all your headquarters, all of your mobile users, which have scaled and become large over the last couple of years during the lockdown and the pandemic and things like that, are no longer trying to reach necessarily a single data center, but they're trying to get up to their information and their applications and their services that they use as a service, software as a service, and in the public cloud, infrastructure as a service. There's been an explosion of mobile users, and scaling to meet these challenges has been very difficult. The traditional approach to this was that users, first of all, were in an office. And users in an office would use a MPLS link some sort of a leased link, a peer-to-peer link, maybe an IPsec tunnel or something like that, a dedicated link to access the information that they needed in a big data center. And you would traditionally have a big old firewall in the data center to filter, provide security, limit access, enforce least privilege, all of those sort of things. Well, that worked out well when everything was in the data center. And when you didn't have a situation necessarily where you had users in one office that needed to talk to users in another office, your solution then was either to take the long way around, enforce security, and go all the way back, or create some sort of a secure link between offices. Well, this is expensive and it's also complex, and also means now I need to enforce security at a different point, and becomes much more complex and much more expensive to do. So the solution is get rid of these links, make everybody go the long way around to talk to each other, which may be acceptable within an enterprise. But remember, all the traffic is now going to the internet. That's where your applications are. That's where you're going. That's where you're getting to Workday and Salesforce and Google Drive and your Office 365, Office on Demand. Everything's up in the up on the internet in the cloud. So now you have a situation where users in your offices are having to backhaul to a big data center that could be halfway around the world, halfway around the continent, a long way away, to get out to the internet instead of taking the short path to get straight out there. With these limitations, this model for users in offices has become untenable, expensive, slow, poor user experience. Then the other thing we have to think about is the explosion of mobile users. People sitting at home, sitting on mobile devices, sitting on their own devices inside their homes during lockdown, accessing corporate data, accessing the internet, accessing their SaaS applications, doing their recreational internet access from corporate devices, from their own devices, and being able to handle that. Well, the traditional model there is very similar to what it is for different sites. But you have mobile users trying to get out to the internet. Well, their first stop needs to be someplace where security is enforced. Not just endpoint security, but all of the things you come to expect with next generation security, like application ID and decryption and the threat protections and all of those sort of things. The traditional model means that you have to, again, backhaul all of your mobile users to some sort of a data center, a centralized location where all of this can be done. And with the explosion of mobile users lately and during the lockdown and the pandemic and all of that, you need to buy more bandwidth. You need to have bigger data centers. You need to have bigger pipes. You need to expend a lot more capital and operational expenses to be able to handle these mobile users that just exploded all of a sudden. And again, it becomes untenable. It becomes expensive. It becomes hard to do. You end up with a solution that has a lot of drawbacks. It's not agile. To set up an MPLS link to backhaul traffic between a remote office and a main data center, and add all of the routes you might need and set up BGP and do all of these different things, Takes a long time, weeks. You end up with different vendors and different security products that concentrate on different pieces of that entire security pie and don't do necessarily everything you need to. Your endpoint security solution is different than your large security stack at your data center, which is different than a smaller firewall you may have at a branch office, which is different than the antivirus solution that you may have on a mobile non-corporate device, if it exists at all, if you can even enforce that. So you end up with this inconsistent security posture and high operational costs. Certainly high capital costs to expand these, but think about the operational costs of these. You've got multiple different products with overhead in the management and the licensing and the training and the complexity of deploying all of these different security products, all of the different tools that you have to learn, the user administration you have to do, the different logging, and understanding the different complexities of each of these different solutions cobbled together to try to meet these demands means that there's really high operational costs, and it's very complex. Well, complex to administer, but also complex for users. You have to turn on and off their endpoint security and their on-demand VPN and their proxy to get out to the internet and all that sort of stuff. You end up with either a poor user experience because users don't understand what's going on, or high latency and calls that get cut off, and users that get blocked when they're not supposed to, and all that sort of stuff. And what happens? Well, when you have poor user experience, you have poor user adoption. And when you have poor user adoption, that's when you have a poor security posture, which leads to data breaches and all those sort of things that everybody wants to avoid. So you need a more simplified model, taking all of the things that were typically found at a big data center, deploying those out closer to the users, making it simple for the users to use, giving you a less expensive, more robust security posture. And that's exactly what SASE, Secure Access Service Edge, is. It's the convergence of your traditional networking solutions like your SD-WAN and your IPsec tunnels and your remote access VPNs and things like that that terminate on physical devices at a data center, and the traditional security functions of firewalls and zero trust network architecture and secure web gateways and CASB solutions and DLP solutions, protection for IoT, all of those sort of things, and taking it off of physical devices and offering it as a service with your networking as a service and your security as a service. This is what SASE is. It's a combination of those two things. So now, whether you're talking about users sitting in an office, sitting at home, sitting on their mobile devices, sitting on corporate devices, they can go through this networking as a service and security as a service layer to get out to their SASE application or their SaaS applications for work, to get to public cloud data centers with infrastructure as a service, say to authenticate, to get out to the internet, and of course, to get to all the things that may still be at a data center. 80% of the stuff that used to be in a data center is now up in the cloud, but there's still stuff in a data center you might need. So whether you have users in an office, sitting in their house, sitting on corporate devices, sitting on their own personal mobile devices. All of this can be offered with consistent security for all these users at all these different locations. That's what SASE is. Here at Palo Alto Networks, we have the ability to deliver this to you with network as a service functionality that includes Prisma SD-WAN that we're going to talk about, a traditional IPsec VPN tunnels, a generic third-party SD-WANs, clientless VPNs, all of those different things. We have security service providers that can offer clean pipe and all of those sort of things that would traditionally were on physical devices, again, as a service. And all those things you come to expect from our next generation firewalls with decryption and user ID and app ID, known threat protection and unknown threat protection with wildfire and URL filtering, services for end user protection like Cortex XDR and Prisma SaaS and our DLP data loss prevention solutions and things like that. They can all be offered as a service. So the Palo Alto Networks SASE solution has two major components to it. It has Prisma Access and Prisma SD-WAN, two different pieces of our platform that can be offered together with a lot of interaction between the two to simplify the deployment of both. So let's take a look at these. And we'll begin with Prisma Access. The idea of Prisma Access is to offer solutions, security solutions for these users in branch offices and users, mobile users sitting at home, people that aren't in the office. Our solution for users inside of an office, centralized in one place or multiple places throughout the world, is our remote network solution. We take all of the security that you used to find in a large data center, all of the different things that we were talking about here with your traditional next generation Palo Alto Networks security platform. And instead of having to backhaul all that traffic back to a centralized data center before it goes out to the internet or wherever it's going to go, we can actually build what we call SPNs or security processing nodes in the cloud, geographically close to your branch office locations. And you simply build an IPsec tunnel up so you have a secure connection between that branch office and these security processing nodes that give us the ability to do all the things you're used to with PAN-OS. These security processing nodes have several locations all around the world that you can deploy. They deploy in HA pairs, and you have the ability to have both active and backup nodes. They're automatically spun up. You can have multiple tunnels, active and backup tunnels between the branch offices and these SPNs. And so it gives you this fault tolerance, gives you the automatic deployment, and it gives you a centralized administrative and management solution for all of this. So it scales very well. And it gives you that user experience, that better user experience than it would be backhauling back to a data center. For the mobile users, users sitting at home on mobile devices, not inside an office, we have a mobile user solution that's based upon our Global Protect solution that you may already be familiar with. The idea is that that users connect to a portal, And a portal would set up rules for how a user would be able to connect or disconnect, or what global protect gateways a user might use. And the global protect gateway was where security was enforced and implemented. With Prisma Access, we have what we call an MU-SPN, a mobile user SPN, which is the equivalent of our global protect gateway. Gives you all of the PAN-OS, Palo Alto networks, next generation functionalities. So the combination of this with the mobile users and the remote networks is Prisma Access. The next piece, or the other side of this, is Prisma SD-WAN. This offers a solution to the other challenge involved that we are trying to solve with our SASE solution. And that is the users in branch offices, remote offices, that were traditionally being backhauled through a private link to a data center, now no longer need to go through that data center all the time. Where they're trying to get out is just to the internet. What the Prisma SD-WAN solution provides is the ability to get those users straight out to the internet, to their SASE, their SaaS solutions. They're out to the public cloud, to the private cloud, to the internet, without backhauling them through a data center, and gives you the ability to save capital and operational cost by using commodity internet links that are going to be a lot less expensive than these lease links or peer-to-peer links or MPLS links or things like that. Now, certainly you can keep those old ones, but in addition, you can have multiple active links and active backup links and all of these sort of things to assure high availability and to assure that users can get where they need to go no matter what's going on. Even the use of things such as LTE or 4G or 5G links without physical connectivity, but cell connectivity, and a combination of these. It uses a device that sits in these remote offices and in these different corporate offices. It's called an ION device, an instant on network device. And one of the cool things about this is that these ION devices find each other and connect to each other and provide an overlay to guarantee that you have access back and forth between different offices, between one branch and another branch, between branch offices and the data centers, between branch offices and the internet, through secure links, through security nodes like Prisma Access, through MPLS links, a combination of those, meaning that you don't need all the hardware you needed to in the traditional solution. Gives you a lot of hardware savings, gives you lower cost links and more affordable bandwidth, which is going to lower your cost, and takes all of those things that were traditionally consolidated at a data center and means you no longer have to backhaul all of your users to that data center, when ultimately all they need to do is get out to the internet to get to their SaaS applications or whatever they're going to do. As I said, the ION devices connect together with what we call zero provision tunnels, which means that we don't have to set up site to site or site to multi-site VPN tunnels like you might traditionally do with between routers or SD-WAN controllers and older generation solutions. The devices connect to each other automatically with secure tunnels and are all controlled centrally through a single SD-WAN controller, a single pane of glass. This provides you a secure application fabric or overlay using any of the physical cabling and tunnels and circuits that you might have. It gives you that security layer to do that. And what Prisma SD-WAN does, besides giving you secure connectivity, and besides the ability to use multiple links and to scale at a much lower cost, is it also gives you all of those things you traditionally think about with Palo Alto networks. Layer 7 visibility, the ability to look at applications, the ability to do ZTNA, zero trust network architecture. In other words, to determine what users can have access to what applications and what users could talk to other components, other segments of your network when you're doing network segmentation, and which ones you want to isolate. It gives administrators the ability to prioritize different applications with different priorities, lower or higher. We have 4 different buckets we use. Platinum is the highest priority, then gold, silver, and bronze is the lowest priority, and allows us to choose different paths or different circuits that we are able to use to get to different destinations, to reach different applications, that different users in different segments can use, and to prioritize different types of traffic down these paths to give you full control over all of this. Now, SD-WAN technology, it's not new. It's been around. It kind of grew out of the idea of site-to-site links. It traditionally uses router-based products that give you the ability to forward traffic packet by packet. They're routers. So we're routing. We're using basic layer 3 policies to say, well, to get, or layer 3 or 4 policies to say, you know, this port is allowed or not allowed to get from this IP address to that IP address, use this route, use this link, use this circuit. Traditional SD-WAN solutions give you the ability to have primary and backup links. The devices usually have to be individually configured. The rules for switching over from a primary to backup link have to be set, or manual intervention has to be done. It doesn't scale very well because there's a lot of manual operations. And then if you want to add things like security or application availability or zero trust network architecture or QoS, prioritization of traffic. You have to buy different products for this. You got to bolt this stuff on. You got to keep adding to the functions to do this. So the traditional SD-WAN solution just wasn't very flexible. Our solution with Palo Alto Networks Prisma SD-WAN means that these appliances are controlled and configured centrally through one pane of glass. The paths and the circuits to get from a branch out to wherever you need to go are available, and we can automatically determine the best path for the best way to get from point A to point B for specific users and prioritize different traffic automatically without intervention. Determine what traffic needs to go through additional security like Prisma Access. Gives you the ability to do all the things you're used to, user ID, threat protection, all of those things that you get with Prisma Access, as well as the automatic path selection and the high availability of circuits that you get with Prisma SD-WAN to give you all the protection you need with your application defined automatic failover and automatic high availability, and take all the things that used to be at a data center and deliver them at the branch level, giving you a better user experience. So now you get that layer 7 visibility, and therefore layer 7 functionality. We say, well, this application can choose this circuit and needs to go through Prisma Access. This other application uses this other circuit and doesn't need to go through Prisma Access. We use machine learning, artificial intelligence to aid in troubleshooting, to greatly reduce troubleshooting overhead, to be able to automatically fail between links, to choose individually, session by session, what the best way to get from point A to point B is for specific traffic, and take all those things and move them to the branch level without giving you the complexity of having a bunch of devices at a bunch of different branches and stuff like that. You still got one pane of glass where you're managing this whole thing. So all the traditional limitations of SD-WAN, just being able to measure packets per second and average packet size, packet loss, and not being able to really differentiate different applications. I mean, you do ports, port 80, port 443, but how many different applications are on port 443? How do you tell the difference? Well, with Prisma SD-WAN and our application awareness, we can look at different applications. We can break them down into different flows, the different sides of the conversation. We can measure transaction times and failures and directionality of traffic, inbound, outbound. We can look at the size of packets per application, mean opinion scores, and all those sort of things for audio and video streaming that you just don't have insight to in your traditional SD-WAN solutions. Of course, if you don't have insight to it, you can't see it, you can't control it. You also can't troubleshoot it. You don't know when problems come up until somebody tells you. Within our solution, we can break down traffic by application, by link or path. We can look at not only just overall times, we can break down response times by network, time on the network, round trip time, time on the server, things such as that. So you get much more insight and much more visibility into what's going on. We have a great reporting suite within the Prisma SD-WAN controller, much like we have great reporting suites within Prisma Access. And we even have combinations between the two with this SASE solution that we have. And it turns out that you don't need nearly as much equipment and nearly as much capital expenses to get all this insight as you used to have with traditional SD-WAN solutions, where you didn't have this layer 7 visibility and therefore not the layer 7 controller functionality. The idea here is to deliver what we call a cloud delivered branch, to be able to take all of the traditional functionalities that were needed to be pushed through a centralized data center to get any visibility and control, and be able to deliver all of that at the branch level. So Prisma SD-WAN is a solution for your branch users, your remote networks, as we would call them in Prisma Access. But it gives you all of the layer 7 functionality and all the high availability that you would get with the traditional SD-WAN solution, and combines it with Prisma Access into one single SASE solution here. We have also tons of integration tools. We call these CloudBlades that allow you to integrate between Prisma Access and Prisma SD-WAN, between Prisma SD-WAN and different operational things like automated ticketing and all kinds of things like that. When you think about a blade, on a big blade and chassis solution, you know, if I have a router and I want to make it into a firewall, I can add a firewall blade. And if I want to be able to do signature-based inspections, I can add an IPS blade and do all these sort of things. Well, these new functionalities, these additional functionalities and integrations use what we call CloudBlades because it's all in the cloud. These are free tools to help our Palo Alto Networks SASE solution users, our SD-WAN subscription holders, the ability to automate all of these processes. Now, the other thing we need to think about is when it comes to these two pieces of our security platform, is to be able to get a unified field, unified reporting, ease of configuration. And one of the things we have to do that is our app switcher, which allows you to, from the same browser window, to click back and forth between Prisma SD-WAN and Prisma Access to be able to configure one or both, to automate processes between the two, to be able to view reports and compare information back and forth between the two. It's a simple plugin that you just activate through the customer support portal, and you're able to go back and forth, which gives you automated deployment, individual end user experience and SLAs on that, and gives you all the security that you're traditionally used to with the traditional model, backhauling everybody back to the data center. How is this going to help you? Well, got a few examples, some use cases, some real life use cases. Remember, we're talking about three things with our SASE solution. We're talking about hybrid work, people wanting to work from home, people working on personal devices, corporate devices, sitting at the airport, sitting in the mall, grabbing dinner and working. We're thinking about cloud and digital transformation, taking all of the services and applications that were traditionally in a data center and they're moving up either into the public or private cloud. And then the third piece is branch transformation, taking all of those things that used to require backhauling to a huge centralized data center with long transit times and round trip times and latency, and bringing that to the branch and giving you better user experience. When we're talking about hybrid work, people working at home, people working in the office sometimes, working on the go, using corporate devices and non-corporate devices and all that sort of stuff. Our SASE solution does this for you. If you're sitting at home or you're on the go, we have our mobile user solution. If you're working through in the office a couple days a week or a hybrid office, we have our remote network and branch solutions for you. And one of our customers, Schlumberger, during the lockdown, was able to, within a matter of days, not weeks, not months, able to scale from 25,000 to 80,000 mobile users, literally in a matter of days. So think of the lack of disruption for this, and think about the ease of configuration that made this possible. The move to the cloud, the move to SaaS applications, the move to infrastructure as a service, hosting your Active Directory up in Microsoft Azure, storage up in the cloud, hosting applications and websites up in the cloud for AWS or Google Cloud or what have you there. Things that were traditionally in servers behind a perimeter in a data center, now up in the cloud. Autodesk was able to reduce 7 data centers down to one physical data center and move everything up in the cloud using Prisma SD-WAN to do this, part of our SASE solution. And at this point, I believe they've even gotten rid of that last data center. Their plan was this year to go 100% cloud. And then the other thing is taking all the users at headquarters and branches and manufacturing plants and the storefronts, retail, all that sort of stuff that traditionally had to go back to a data center that no longer really need resources there to be able to get them through a security layer, security as a service, out to the internet, out to their SaaS applications, etc. And AutoNation is a great example of that. The cost savings they were able to do without having to rely on expensive site-to-site links and be able to start using commodity internet links to provide a high availability solution with the same sort of 6 nines uptime that they had before, reduce their costs by $3 million a year, about 25%, without any interruptions in connectivity or anything like that. So these are the use cases you can see with this SASE solution, with the idea of secure access service edge using Prisma Access and Prisma SD-WAN. So thank you for listening to me for a little while. We will have some questions and answers, things like that. If anybody has any questions, there's a QA functionality. But I appreciate everybody joining in. Thank you very much.